PREGAME.com.
Wednesday baseball action. It's Tampa at Oakland. Who would have thought this early in the season? But this is actually an important game for wild card race. The Oakland A's, the hottest team in baseball right now, Brian. We're taping on Monday. This game's on Wednesday, so they'll be playing 2 games before we get to here. But 18-4 their last 22 games. Would you have thought that?
It just tells you the difference in baseball. Makes it a long season. Who's your hottest hitting teams in baseball? Not the Texas Rangers, not the Boston Red Sox, the Pittsburgh Pirates and the Oakland A's.
What a story. I mean, it had never happened, but what a story if you would ever get a World Series between the Oakland A's and the Pittsburgh Pirates. You talk about small market cities doing it on a beer budget, champagne taste with a beer budget. I mean, these two teams here, you could add their payrolls together and still be less than probably some of the teams.
I always root for the underdogs, which is why, for the most part, I root for Tampa Bay, because Tampa Bay is one of those teams that doesn't have the high payroll, and they're able to win. Minnesota's another team that's done it that way.
Oakland, they've been the poster child. I mean, everybody knows the movie Moneyball and everything, but here's a team that on paper at the beginning of this year, this was a third-place team at best, and it was in a 4-horse division where
when you look at the money Texas and Anaheim spent.
Yeah, this team had no way to compete. And at the beginning of the year, Brian, this is how much, like you said, things evolve. At the beginning of the year, they were doing it with pitching. I mean, they had young pitchers. They were going out, holding the teams to 2 or 3 runs every night. And if they could scratch and claw, win one of those 3-2 type games, they were winning. Now, all of a sudden, they still got good pitching, but some of the pitching's coming back to earth a little bit, and we'll talk about that in a second. But the hitting, like you said, they're lighting it up. They've scored 4 or more runs in 11 of their last 15 ball games. This is a team that if they scored 4 runs at the beginning of the season, it was an onslaught for them. What do you attribute this hitting surge with this team?
Well, a lot of it is they've had guys had career years. I mean, you take a look at many of the players that are really producing for that team. A lot of them are career minor leaguers. Now, Cespedes, when he's in the lineup, they win 60% of their games.
3 times fast.
I don't even remember what I just said. 60% of the time they win with Cespedes in the lineup. Tells you how important he is. But they've got Coco Crisp, came out of nowhere again. I mean, that guy, we thought he was out of baseball a couple of years ago. They've got guys that have been, like I said, career minor leaguers coming up now. Carter, I've watched Carter play here in the Pacific Coast League all the time. Every time I go to see a ball game with him, he hits a home run, and I go, why isn't this guy playing in the majors? Finally, I don't know how many times he's come up. Now he's playing in the majors. He's playing very well.
Well, Parker's a guy that's going for Oakland that's been one of the surprises. Now, he's one of these guys, though, that I'm going to call a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, because he's either super good or super bad. And he's had 18 starts. 11 of his 18 starts. Now, normally we talk about, quality starts and say, okay, the guy's had, 12 out of 16 quality starts, 3 runs or less. Right. This guy, 11 of his 18 starts, 1 run or less. 1 run or less. Think about it. You're in every ball game. You're only giving up 1 run. But those other games that he's not giving up 1 run, he has a tendency to get hit hard in those games. And 3 of his last 4 games, he's given up 4 runs or more. And the 3 teams in that 4-game stretch was Baltimore, Minnesota, and Seattle. Not exactly powerhouse lineups. They can score some runs, but for him to get, lit up by those teams, you would expect it with teams like the Yankees and Texas and stuff. And actually, he had a gem against the Yankees in that 4-game stretch. The key that I saw, and we've talked about this before, when you've got these young pitchers, first time around the league, they've got a huge edge. 2 of the games, Minnesota and Seattle, there were second times that he met them, and they lit him up a little bit. Don't have that in this game. This will be the first time he's facing Tampa this year. So I like him here. I like him to give us that good outing. Do you think, and we can talk about it because we did the parallel to the Pittsburgh Pirates, a team that's been losing and now all of a sudden is winning, and now you've got the fans believing. They believe in Pittsburgh right now. They believe in Oakland right now. does it put added pressure on these young players where now the public believes in you and they expect you to win? It's one thing to be winning when you're flying off the radar, but as soon as you're in everybody's line of sight, how does that affect the young team?
I don't know if it's going to affect a lot in Oakland, only because they've been bad for so long. You're from Pittsburgh. I'm from Cleveland. We're used to losing. So it takes a lot to really start believing in your team. I mean, you got to be winning 3/4 of the season in order to actually buy into the situation. You talked about Parker with Seattle. I believe he played Seattle in Oakland. And Seattle's offense, when they get out of the Kingdom,
Well, boy, there was a flashback.
Yeah, I'm old. But when they get out of Seattle,
Right.
they're a much better hitting team. So I'm not going to fault them too much for that. I think they're one of the top hitting teams in baseball outside of their home.
Oh, they did a number earlier in the year. I remember when they went into Texas and just absolutely embarrassed the Rangers.
22 and 18, was it?
Yeah, they scored a ton of runs.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they can. In Tampa, let's face it. I mean, Tampa's one of those teams that's going to win with pitching. They're not going to win with hitting. And the pitcher they got going today, Cobb's, not exactly, what you want to call a model of consistency. He does pitch better in the day than he does at night, which this game is a day game. So, we'll point that fact out. His night ERA is 5.60 as opposed to in the daylight 3.70. When you've got almost a 2-run difference in your ERA between day and night, that's like day and night difference.
I will point out, Mr. Whitty, Tampa plays half their games in a dome. Mm-hmm. So I don't care if it's a day game, if it's a night game. I don't think it matters. So that's something you have to take into account there. But what concerns me about Cobb, other than the Rays have dropped 8 out of his last 10 games, he's a 3-pitch pitcher. Fastball, curveball, changeup. The opponents are hitting .312 off of his fastball this year.
That's not good.
No, I believe he throws 58% fastballs. So when you can't beat the hitter throwing your fastball and you really only have 2 other pitches, it's not a good situation. What I actually like here, and we didn't discuss this earlier, but I kind of like the over here. We expect this total to be about 7.5. Parker, you mentioned it, as he's going on, he's struggling. July ERA of 5.34. Mm-hmm. You always have to worry about some of these pitchers, rookie pitchers, as they get into the season. They're putting up more innings than they had in the past, more priority innings. A lot of these younger pitchers, you're pitching in single A, double A, you're working on certain things. You don't have that much of a pressure on it. It's not like you're in the majors, and every pitch means a lot. That could be somewhat of an effect for Parker. I know he didn't start the season on the team, but he was down in the minors, put some innings down in the minors. And with Cobb, the day-night thing, I don't know, but this is in Oakland, it's a day game. And out on the West Coast, if you watch the Oakland games, you watch the Angels games, you watch the San Diego games, those night games, the ball doesn't travel at all. Day games are a little bit different. Now, Oakland's feels a little bit different because of a lot of foul territory, which definitely helps the pitchers. Gets back to our discussion earlier about why Oakland's pitching has been so good over these years. I think a lot of it has to do with the field they play on. But this game playing during the day, I think, is a little bit of an edge for the over. I'm not convinced that Parker's as good as he showed earlier. I mean, he's got a great pedigree. He's highly thought of, but he came out of nowhere. He's pitching way over his head.
Oh, absolutely, no question. And that's a great point about, not only the number of innings for these guys, to start to get a little bit of a tired arm, but you throw these guys into a situation now where right now, as of Monday, Oakland's in the lead for the wild card, believe it or not, and it's absolutely amazing to me. And like I said, I've probably followed the A's more than any other team this year just because I do a lot of radio shows out of San Francisco and Oakland area, and the host covers the A's, so we're always talking about the A's on the radio show, and this is just they're having a ball out there right now with the A's, and it's deservedly so. Because in a division, like you said, the Angels went out, if they didn't already have enough pitchers and spend enough money, they go out and get Greinke,
Between, what is it with LA? The Dodgers made these great trades. I just saw today they had like 2 or 3 other stud players that they were looking to bring in. Lots of money in LA. Why aren't we living in LA?
We don't have lots of money?
I don't have lots of money. I wouldn't be sitting here with you if I had a lot of money. But I did want to point out, in regards to Parker, he's been very fortunate with the long ball this year. In 59 innings at home, he's only given up 2 home runs. A lot of it, once again, is a ballpark.
Back to the ballpark.
But, you know, you're not going to see that all year long.
All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and go with Oakland. And I got to say, I agree with Brian, too. With the over-under on this play that Cobb's not reliable and Parker, the further he goes in this season and as he starts facing these teams for the second or third time during the season, I think Parker's going to be a guy that's going to get hit. And if the A's keep hitting the way they're hitting, overs are going to be the way to go on this team. So you've got to vote for me on Oakland. Brian's giving you a little vote on the over. That's going to wrap it up for the early week videos here at pregame.tv. We'll be back later in the week. It'll be me and probably Brian or VR later in the week doing the videos. So stay tuned to pregame.tv all week long.